Hello, my name is Todd Ullman, and I'm a member of All the Word Bible Translators. We're developing a software system that significantly reduces the time and cost of a Bible translation project. Our slogan is, All the Word for all the world, because we want to see everyone have God's entire Word in their own language. And we believe that's possible because of the software system that we're developing. So I'll show you a short video here. Here's the main screen of our software. And right now you see there's a Korean lexicon loaded, and we're at Daniel 1:1. And at this screen we work on just one verse, and you can see that we thoroughly analyze each verse. The clauses are marked with lots of features, which you see in the pop-up. The noun phrases are marked with features. The words are marked with features. The concepts are very precisely defined. Then over here we have the grammar rules for the language. We'll look at just one of the rules for Korean. This particular rule inserts all of the tense markers on the Korean verbs. Now the point of this software is when we click this Generate button, the software will take our analysis of Daniel 1:1 and apply the Korean lexicon and grammar to it and produce an initial draft translation of that verse in Korean, and we see it there. Now let's switch to English. So the software loads the English lexicon. Takes just a moment here. So we see the analysis of Daniel 1:1, but now we see English words here. But the analysis stays exactly the same. All of the target languages use the same set of source texts. And we'll look at just one of the grammar rules for English. This rule inserts all of the pronouns. So you see the personal pronouns, the reflexive pronouns, the reciprocal pronoun, possessive pronouns, etc. And now, when we click the Generate button, the software will take our analysis of Daniel 1:1 and apply the English lexicon and grammar to it, and produce an initial draft translation in English. A man named Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. Another man named Jehoiakim was the king of Judah. When Jehoiakim had been the king of Judah for about 3 years, Nebuchadnezzar and his army went to Jerusalem. Then they attacked Jerusalem and defeated Jehoiakim and his army. Now we'll go to Tagalog, the national language of the Philippines. I'm based here in Manila. So the software loads the Tagalog lexicon. And we're still here at Daniel 1:1, and now you see Tagalog words here. And we'll look at one of the rules for Tagalog. Tagalog is an ergative absolutive system, and they use case markers, and here are all of the case markers used in Tagalog. They have many of them, as you can see. So now when we click the Generate button, the software will take our analysis of Daniel 1:1 and apply the Tagalog lexicon and grammar and produce an initial draft of this verse in Tagalog. Now at this screen, we can only work on one verse at a time. Here's where we enter all the words and build the grammar. When our grammar and lexicon are well developed, we come here, where we can generate an initial draft translation of the entire Bible, if we had source text for the entire Bible. For this video, we're going to generate an initial draft of the book of Genesis in Tagalog. Now this is a time lapse. In real time, this would take approximately 3 hours. But our software is now applying the Tagalog lexicon and grammar to our source text for Genesis and producing this draft. We could give this draft to any Tagalog speaker, and he or she would easily be able to understand it. It's not polished. It needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be revised. We need more precise words put in. The information needs to flow more smoothly, more pronouns, etc. But any Tagalog speaker could understand this. So there's a draft of Genesis in Tagalog. If we had source text for the entire Bible, we could click that button and our software would produce an initial draft translation of the entire Bible. I'd like to compare the traditional approach with the all-the-word approach, the approach we're developing. You're all familiar with the traditional approach. The MTTs produce an initial draft, then there's a team check, community check, back translation, consultant check, and the final translation. With our approach, it's exactly the same, except we put an immense amount of effort up at the beginning in order to help the MTTs get off to a very good start. So we prepare special source text for each Bible book. In that short video clip that you just saw, you saw the source text for Daniel 1:1. Okay, we do that for every verse of an entire book. And then we'll have a source text for that book. And building a source text is an immense amount of work. This year we'll be building the source text for Matthew. One of our colleagues will be. And that will take, we estimate, about 200 hours. But once we have the source text for Matthew, it can be used in every language project. We only need to do it once. So we're building special source texts, and then for each target language we need a lexicon and grammar. And for a new language that we're working in, we estimate that it takes roughly about a year to build a lexicon and grammar. This approach is entirely linguistically motivated. We build grammar rules, linguistically motivated grammar rules. If we have a lexicon and grammar for a related language, then we want to modify that for another related language, then we estimate that process will take about half a year. So after we have a lexicon and grammar for a language, we use our software, and the software will apply that lexicon and grammar to the source text and produce an initial draft translation. We give that to the MTTs, and they will revise it and produce a presentable first draft. After that, everything else is the same. Team check, community check, back translation, consultant check, and the final translation. But by investing an immense amount of effort up front, we can save all of the teams of MTTs around the world many years of work. We help them get off to a very good start. I'd like to mention some of the benefits of using our software. We call our software TBTA, the Bible Translator's Assistant. And one of the benefits is that the drafting stage is reduced by about 90%. If you build a good lexicon and grammar for a language, the software will produce a high-quality draft, and then when you give that draft to the MTTs, they're able to easily edit it and make it a presentable first draft. They can do the editing in a fraction of the time that it takes them to manually translate the same text. The consultant checking stage is reduced by about 50%. Our source texts are being consultant checked, so they make sure that all of the essential information is in the source text and it's accurate. So if the source texts are consultant checked, then when the software produces a draft translation, those draft translations will have all of the essential information and they will be accurate as well. So consultant checking is reduced by about half. The time and cost of the entire project is reduced by about 35%. If we combine these first two factors together, that will reduce the time and cost by about 35%. TBTA produces translations for multiple audiences. By that I mean when we're preparing the source text, we include extra additional information, implicit information, to make the text easier to understand. But all of that implicit information is tagged, so it can either be included or excluded during the translation process. So we can produce one draft for people who have never read the Bible before, and it will include all that implicit information. Then later, we can produce another draft that doesn't include all of that implicit information. It includes only the canonical text. We can also vary the level of vocabulary in the translation. For newly literate people, we can use simpler vocabulary. For highly literate people, we can use more complex vocabulary. And finally, the required skill set of the MTTs is reduced. They're no longer doing exegesis. They still compare our software, the draft produced by our software, with national language translations. So they're comparing, but they're no longer actually translating. They're now editing, and they're making the text smooth and presentable. I'm based in Manila, which you see here in a red circle, and I'm currently involved with 4 projects. One is in Indonesia, one is in the southern Philippines, one's in the northern Philippines, and one is in China. I meet with these translators online, and we talk about their languages. I ask them lots of questions, and we enter their data into the software, and then the software produces a draft. And the translators show those drafts to their MTTs, and the MTTs mark up the text and send them back to us. Then the translator will tell me why they made various changes. And we put as many of those changes into the grammar as possible. So gradually, the software is producing better and better drafts. And I'm not learning any of these languages. I couldn't possibly. I'm just meeting online with these people, and we work together with the MTTs to enter the lexicon and grammar for each of these 4 languages. So that's a summary of our work at All the Word. If you'd like more information, you can visit our website at alltheword.org. If you have questions, please feel free to email me at toddallman@alltheword.org. I'd be glad to hear from you.